William Ruto became Kenya's 5th president this September. At his inauguration, Ruto pledged to unify the nation and be the leader of all Kenyans. One way the Ruto administration can move Kenya forward is by vigorously pursuing policies that increase economic freedom. Economic freedom is defined as the fundamental right of every human to control his or her own labor and property. Countries with higher levels of economic freedom enjoy many benefits that their unfree counterparts do not. Thankfully, Kenya has been moving in an increasingly free direction over time. According to the Fraser Institute's annual Economic Freedom in the World report, a study that measures the level of economic freedom in 165 economies on a scale from 1 to 10, Kenya has experienced a substantial increase in economic freedom over the past 3 decades. From 1990 to 2015, Kenya's score improved from an abysmal 5.22 to a solid 7.15. However, the latest edition of the EFW report, released this September, showed that Kenya's overall economic freedom score fell to 6.96, a worrying development during a time when sub-Saharan Africa and Kenya itself is facing many challenges. Kenya's recent decline in economic freedom is similar to other sub-Saharan African countries that are recovering in the wake of the pandemic. Proponents of protectionism have been calling for government intervention to help economies bounce back after the devastating lockdowns, but as the Fraser Institute report shows, this is a naive policy response. Instead, Kenya needs to respond with policies that improve the freedom its citizens enjoy. The EFW report finds that the freest 25% of nations, when adjusted for purchasing power, have average incomes more than 7 times higher than average incomes in the least free 25% of nations. The Fraser Institute also shows that in the least free economies, almost 31% of the populace lives in extreme poverty compared to just 2% in the freest states. For Kenyans to experience better lives, the Ruto administration needs to address problem areas that distort markets and harm economic performance. Currently, the 2 key areas that are hampering Kenya's development are the difficulties to trade internationally, especially with other African nations, and corruption in the public sector. Thankfully, a newly implemented continent-wide trade deal indicates Kenya's attitude toward trade is moving in a favorable direction. The African Continental Free Trade Area was implemented by the African Union in 2021 and aims to remove more than 97% of tariffs on all goods traded between African states within 12 years. For many of the more developed African states, at least 90% of all tariffs will be scrapped by 2026. The successful implementation of the AFCFTA would be a massive boon to Kenya's private sector, as new markets become available for Kenyan products. Perhaps the more difficult task that President Ruto faces is dealing with corruption. According to Transparency International, Kenya experiences higher levels of corruption than 70% of the 180 countries and territories scored in their Corruption Perception Index. Despite such nefarious practices, Kenya is one of the biggest economies in East Africa and has experienced solid economic growth in the past decade. But if long-term growth is to be sustained, the Ruto administration must make headway against corruption. Not doing so would severely limit economic performance. The election that brought President Ruto to power was contentious, but now that it is settled, the country must move forward. If the Ruto administration wants to be successful, the path of economic freedom must be pursued. If it is, tens of millions of Kenyans will enjoy better livelihoods. If it is not, the economy will stagnate in the near future. Let's hope Ruto makes the right decision. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to follow the IATP on Twitter at @the_IATP. Also, hit the like and subscribe button below, and check out our website at www.theiatp.org.